Thank you. That's beautiful. A couple things. I'm going to go off from what she was saying about plants, plant presence, breathing. Several months ago, my dear friend, my coyote sister, Luna here, and I took kind of a large quantity of a substance called Jurema, which is a mimosa-based, it's like an ayahuasca. It's a two-part, but a bit too much of it. And I was supposed to be Luna's helper that night, and several times I heard Luna would, "Somebody help the helper." But it was wonderful. It was actually, in ways, more psychedelic than, very powerful than even some of my better ayahuasca journeys. It was very strong and very interesting. But I recovered a few days later, and then about a couple weeks later, I was out in my garden, and it has a sweetness to it. It's just like, kind of like John's lotus. It has an amazing sweetness to it, the feeling and da-da-da. I'm out in the garden several weeks later, and just kind of starting to pull weeds and doing some stuff, and from the plants, I felt the same odor, the same sweetness as I had experienced in a massive dose several weeks before. And having that massive dose allowed me to recognize that. And what I realized is that gardening is the most popular hobby there is. And why are these crazy fool people out gardening? They can go to Safeway and get what they need. It's because the plants are seducing us with these scents, which we don't even recognize. We don't even typically recognize. But gardeners become fanatic gardeners when they get their green thumb polished up. But I figured that out that day, and thanks to my coyote sister and her dose. Again, spirituality in a modern world vis-a-vis the plants, I guess, is the question. And one of the things that's happened to me, my wife teaches at Ghost Ranch, which is a Presbyterian study center. And it's all over the place. I mean, you can get as much Presbyterianism as you need, but Presbyterians tend to be open to a lot of things. So I run into several ministers there and sneak in my conversation with them. And they are fascinated with the topic of like shamanism, plant medicine is more shamanism, because they have young people in their churches, or it's something that's they're starting to confront in their ministry. So the conversation came up about looking, possibly me and a couple of ministers, to have that conversation for a week seminar at Ghost Ranch on what the heck are we talking about. I'll drag these three beautiful people down with me. But to have that conversation, because my concern is, and I look at, just politically, like left-right now. I mean, the left-wing progressive people look at all the right-wing as a bunch of Sarah Palin idiots, and the right-wing sees us all as a bunch of evil, commie, socialist people, and that conversation is, boom! This country is so splitting into two armed camps, you know, armed in whatever way you arm yourself. And I see that same thing potentially, and it's there obviously all the time, as it's been in the history of South America. You know, he died on the cross to save his people, so that's what a shaman does. And that very powerful people, and I've been in forums and such, like arguing that what the shaman word means. Several years ago, I was down in Iquitos. And it was Amazonian shamanism. Alan Shoemaker puts this conference together. Amazonian shamanism, da-da-da-da, and so the idea was we had 6 or 7 shamans speaking in Spanish. And by the end of the week, none of them were shamans. They says, no, we're curanderos. Because the conversation came up, what is a shaman? Well, one idea of the shaman, and I'm relating this back to how I speak to ministers, to priests, about what is going on in that culture that they need to look at in terms of their ministry, is that one definition of a shaman was master of animals. He was the ecologist, a prime ecologist in that village. His job was to keep track of the game resources, the vegetation resources, and know when to cut down on the tribe or to allow them to increase, when to let the boys go out hunting, when to even go to war. But master of animals said that at times, and classically we see this like an Eskimo culture where grandma and grandpa go out on the ice floe when they're surplus, very limited resources. That was the shaman's job. He was a guy who said, abort those 3 babies, or let's eat those 2 kids. It was a very heavy moral, in the sense of, I don't know that they saw it as a moral, but it was ecologically moral job that this man had. And at some level, we have to keep track of that in this society, this Sangha that we have here, is that's what we're looking at. Because if we're looking at the future, we all are, I'm sure, all super worrywart about the future here, is what does that mean in terms of a culture? And that shamanic world culture has been lost. And now we are at the point, again, of very limited resources to where those master of animal decisions have to be made in our culture. I mean, population control is, you never hear it in politics. It's just it's an elephant in the room. But we have to start working, and like my idea is, you know, talk to everybody, talk to ministers, talk to Art Goodtimes even, about what does this mean in terms of a spiritual world of a very harsh thing that we don't have the ability as a Western society to handle because of our various moralities based on unlimited wealth. So that's the kind of things I see. And I go to ayahuasca, and like Paul Stamets said, he used to go to, when he get a problem, he'd go to mushrooms. I will go to ayahuasca, and sometimes it makes sense and gives me some of these answers, but I have no answers yet. So don't wait for the book.
Well, I want to invite people to come up and ask some questions. If we have a microphone here, and
mic's right here.
Time to think about it. But in the meantime, I'd like to hear a little more from Luna and Katrina.
Mikey, that was an old world, new world blend, by the way. That was Jurema and Syrian Rue. That was Jurema and Syrian Rue that you had.
Old world. That was my old world. That's right.
Yeah.